July 2022, the government is planning to abolish ground rents, and even then, will I invest in leasehold properties? No, and here's why. First of all, what is a leasehold in the first place? In the UK property market, we have freehold and leasehold properties. A freehold property is when you own the ground underneath it. So let's say you buy a house and you own the land around it, that is a freehold property. Whereas a leasehold, let's say the same house is on that land, you own the house, but you don't own the land. The technical terms of it is with a freehold, you own the heavens above and the hills below. And on a leasehold, you don't. Well, it's not very typical that a house is leasehold. However, some new builds are, which is now not going to be allowed moving forward because just horrible to do. And in some areas of the UK, for example, you can get a Newcastle Tyne lease, which is a bit of a leasehold. In the West, like Burnley, there's a lot of leasehold, virtual freeholds, not the video for it now. But also it comes down to flats. So what happens with a flat is you own, or an apartment, you own the apartment, but you don't own the communal areas getting there. You don't own the land that the block of flats is on, and you don't own the loft space and things like that. So you are only leasing that land from somebody else, or rights of access to it. So what that means is, let's say you've got a 125-year lease, quite a long time, right? But over time, that goes down 124 years, 123 years, 122 years, 121 years, you get the point. And eventually, if it gets to the end, technically, the freeholder can take the flat off of you. If you own a leasehold property, you are likely paying ground rent and service charge. So ground rent is what you are paying the freeholder for access to the property. Okay, it's by walking on their land, it's a rent for the ground that they own. And then you've got the actual service charge. And the service charge, it's not for every property. Like say you've got a house that's been converted to 2 flats in London, it's very unlikely you're paying a service charge. Whereas if you live in a block of flats, you are likely paying a service charge, and likely a fairly hefty one. Why is this? Well, because who pays for the lift maintenance? Who pays for the cleaning of those communal areas? Who pays for the uplift of those communal areas when it needs painting and things like that? It ain't going to be the freeholder. It needs to be you, because technically you have a share of that you need to contribute to. So this is one of the big reasons I'm not a fan of leasehold properties. Is number one, you don't actually own the property fully. You don't own the ground it's on. But also, you need to factor in the fact you're paying service charge and ground rent, which with some properties dramatically impacts the single most important figure for me, return on capital employed. And I want my 7% return every single year. To carry on with the cons of leasehold property, you're also having to ask somebody for permission. And that really annoys me. You know, I get planning and everything like that. But if you want to make alterations to your property, not only do you need everything the freeholder would need, you also need to ask the freeholder's permission. So if you want to knock down a wall or change the configuration inside, you need written permission from the leaseholder. Otherwise, they can penalise you very significantly. And here's the big one. If you have a leasehold property that's below 80 years, the amount of lenders that are available to lend on those properties drastically reduce. So the mortgage lenders start going down and down and down. By the time you get to about 65 years, you are very unlikely to be able to get a mortgage. So then what do you need to do? Well, you need to extend the lease. So what happens in legals is you get a section 42, which is permission from the freeholder to extend the lease. And it ain't free. It is tens of thousands of pounds. Sometimes I've seen them over £100,000. I know somebody that owns a flat in Chelsea who it went to about 50 years, and to extend it to 125 years was going to be close to £500,000. How crazy is that when you own the property already? Can you tell I'm not a fan? But there are some pros. Pro number one is the fact that you pay the ground rent and service charge means you don't need to take care of the external fabric of the building. So if there's any cracks or the windows or the replacement or the cleaning or the cutting of the grass or the hallways need cleaning, all of that is taken care of you. So you should have a nice, clean apartment building all year round because somebody else is taking care of it, which is really nice if you want a bit more of a passive relaxation and only taking care of what happens inside the flat or the house. The other real pro as well is if there's any form of antisocial behaviour. As a buy-to-let landlord, it's really quite frustrating when you have to get the phone call as the owner of the house if somebody down the road has done something or something has happened down the street or indeed in the property. Whereas with a freehold, technically or usually, the freeholder is listed as the person to contact. And so they will get the phone call. They will need to deal with it as a facilities management type thing. So it really is quite hands-free in that respect. And most of the time you're getting sort of a young family in there. So you're not really needing to do it. So on the most part, it probably is a little bit more passive than owning a freehold house. So you already know what I'm going to say. I like boring, vanilla buy-to-lets, and that's why I like freehold. But that doesn't mean you should stay away from leasehold investments. A lot of changes are coming in. June the 30th, ground rent's meant to be abolished. Situations around the extension of leaseholds getting cheaper, options to extend it to 990 years. You can buy the freehold, but make sure you're reading the lease pack. Make sure you're doing the due diligence. If you did get value from this video, make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell. And by the way, if you're watching and you have purchased leasehold properties, I'm not always right. I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments if you have bought leasehold and what your experience has been, the pros and cons for you. And if you got value, make sure to hit the like button and I'll see you in the next video.